everybody. Welcome to the Broward Center Broadway Chat Series. My name is Tammy Holder, and I'm the artist in residence at the Broward Center. And we're so happy that you've joined us for our fun chat this week. With me tonight is the fabulous
Tim Maines. Hello, everybody.
So last week, if you tuned in, we had an amazing guest. He was a former student of mine and just an all-around rock star, literally. Jeremy Woodard, who was in the original cast of School of Rock and Rock of Ages, was with us talking about all his rock and roll adventures. So if you didn't get a chance to see that live, be sure to check it out on our Facebook page. But Tim, tell us what we got coming up tonight.
Tammy, I am so excited to welcome as this week's guest, the incredibly talented Lianna Hunt, whose credits include Mamma Mia, Newsies, Wicked, and a lot of other really cool stuff that we're going to get a chance to talk about tonight. So before we bring her in, I just want to remind our viewers that if you have a question for Lianna that you want us to ask her live, please put that in the comments section below this video, and we will get to some viewer questions a little bit later on. So without further ado, let's please welcome the very talented Lianna Hunt.
Woo! Hello.
Hello.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on Broadway Chat tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As I said earlier, it gave me a reason to shower today.
Which makes me wonder, kind of, how are you doing? Where are you writing this out? How have you been handling all of this kind of craziness?
Every day is a new adventure, but I'm doing well. I'm currently quarantined in South Carolina with my fiance and his family just outside of Charleston. So we kind of fled the city right when Broadway was shut down. He is currently in the Broadway cast of Wicked. So when that got shut down, we hopped in a rental car and drove 11 hours here, and we are in a beautiful setting with lots of outdoor space. And so we've been setting up shop here.
Well, we're glad to hear that you're safe and well. So now let's rewind back to when things were a little bit more normal and talk about all the great work that you've done. I'd love to start with the show that was your Broadway debut, but I know that your journey with that show began before that. So that's Mamma Mia. Can you talk to us a little bit about the role that you played and your journey in that role?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I played the role of Sophie Sheridan. And that was a pretty crazy journey. I auditioned for Mamma Mia when I was still in college. It was my senior year. And I had just started sort of working with an agency, but we weren't signed yet. And so this was like one of the first auditions they sent me on. And I went in, and it was just a crazy experience, the whole audition. I had gotten sick the night before, and I called my agent in the morning, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't go to this final callback. I've been sick all morning. And he was like, oh, if you can go, you probably should, because they're not seeing people any other day. He was like, grab a ginger ale, hop in a cab. So I was like, okay. And I'm so glad I did, because I found out a few weeks later that I got Sophie on the national tour. And it all just kind of aligned. I found out I had credits so I could graduate a semester early, and I did my showcase. And then a few weeks later, I went on tour in January. And I toured with the show for a year and a half. And then as we were closing up the tour, they told me they wanted to look at me for the Broadway production for Sophie, but they were auditioning Skies, and they wanted to bring me in and have me basically audition for the whole team. So I was in Virginia closing the national tour, and they flew me to New York at like 6 a.m. I landed, went right to the rehearsal studios. I did all of the material that I was doing every night, and then I auditioned with a bunch of different guys who were auditioning for Sky. I went right to the airport. There were weather delays, but I got on a plane, went back to Virginia, and did the show that night.
Oh, no.
I know.
Wow.
It was nuts. And then it was like a month later, 2 months later, I got the call that they wanted me to do Sophie in the Broadway company. The day I was moving in to a brand new apartment with my parents in the car. So when I got the call, we were all in the car together.
Oh, yay.
So we celebrated, and I did the role Sophie for a year and a half on Broadway, and was part of the big 10th anniversary cast celebration. So that was really cool. So that was kind of the bullet points of my journey.
Wow. So what was it like auditioning for a role that you were currently playing? You said you were doing the content that you were doing every night, but how would you audition with that material?
It was so interesting because also I had been doing the show for a year and a half. And, naturally when you do a show that long, you try not to go on autopilot, obviously, but there's so much that's choreographed in the show and acting beats, staging. It's so ingrained in your body at that point. And so I was being asked to show up and forget all of that and kind of revisit the material in as fresh a way as I could, with nothing around me in an audition studio. And so I just kind of challenged myself to be present and forget everything I was doing at night. And, I had to audition with a few Skies, and what they were doing was completely different from what my Sky was doing at night. So it was really fun. It was a really good exercise on just being present and listening. And I ended up having a blast. I had so much fun. It was so fun getting to do the material for people I actually kind of knew. And so, I was really nervous, but when I got there, it ended up being so much fun.
And then when you went back the next night, did it kind of bring a new spin to how you were performing the role? Having had that refreshed look?
Totally. I actually went back that same night, which was so nuts. But yeah, definitely. And when you've been doing for a show for that long, you're kind of hungry for anything that will breathe new life into the show you're doing. And that kind of set me on my way to close the show with this whole fresh new look at the role in the show. And so that was such a blessing.
And then that was your Broadway debut, correct?
Yeah, yes, it was.
So do you remember that first night? What was that like?
No.
It's all a blur.
I remember everything leading up to the curtain going up, and then it's all a blur. But something that's really interesting is when you replace in an existing Broadway show versus when you create a role in a new Broadway show, that those two scenarios are completely different. And so this was replacing a role in a running show, and that tends to move very quickly, and everything, you don't get a lot of rehearsal. You're mostly rehearsing by yourself, and you get pretty much one rehearsal with the full company on stage in costume. And I remember ours was the same day. So I got to the theater that morning, and we did essentially a dress rehearsal, what they call a put-in for me, in costume, ran the entire show. We had a half-hour break. We had to do a bunch of press, and then it was half hour for opening night, and my family was there. And I just remember being I'll process this in a week, but here we go.
And what would you say is your favorite part? You played that role for so long. What was your favorite part of being a part of that story?
Oh my gosh, that, still to this day, that was 10 years ago now that I did that. Still to this day, every experience is so special in its own way, but that one, it's so interesting. And everyone who's done the show says the same thing. It's a family. We're all still connected. People have had babies, started families. People have gotten married within the show, and I'm still so close to the people I did that show with on tour and Broadway, and they feel like family. So it was just nothing is ever quite like it. It was so special.
Oh, that's so fun. So if an ABBA song comes on the radio while you're driving, do you sing along or do you change the channel?
This answer has changed over the years. If you ask me, year one, change the channel. Year two, debatable. At this point, I'm definitely singing. I'm crying, I'm singing. I'm oh my God.
With choreo, full out. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, we're there now.
So another Broadway show that you had a journey with was Newsies. Can you talk to us a little bit about being a part of that show? What was that journey like?
Oh my gosh. Such a dream come true and so special in its own way. I was a huge Disney fan growing up. wanted to be all the princesses, loved the movies, loved the music. So it was always a dream of mine to play a Disney leading lady. So yeah, that journey was it was funny. I hadn't seen the show. The show had been out for maybe 6 months, maybe a year. And I hadn't seen it. So I decided to go see it one night. And I was like, oh my God, I have to be in the show. And then it came out that one of the girls in the ensemble who understudied the lead was leaving to actually, I think, go do Mamma Mia, Sophie and Mamma Mia. And so I got a call from my agent with the audition, and I was like, I must get this. I was obsessed with the music. And I went in for it. I had a great experience. And I ended up getting it. So I understudied the role of Katherine for a year. And then our amazing Katherine, Kara Lindsay, who originated the role, was leaving. And I got the call from my agents that they wanted me to replace her and play the role full time. Oh my gosh. And that was just like, it was a dream come true. And I did that until we closed the show on Broadway in 2014. But yeah, that show was, again, so special in different ways. It was a dream come true of mine. I got to, sing for Alan Menken and meet him on stage after. And
oh, cool.
Now I'm part of the Disney family, which is truly the gift that keeps on giving. I just did a big concert for them at Epcot with Broadway Disney alumni, and I got to revisit some Newsies songs. So yeah, that very much is like a family I'm part of now too.
Yeah. And that role of Katherine, a progressive role, a really strong female role. Can you talk to us a little bit about why she is a strong female role in that show? And what was it important to you to play a role like that?
Oh yeah. That was also a dream. But when I saw the show and I saw her character, I felt like I had so much of that in me, and I wanted to play her so badly. And I was, it's a show that's predominantly male. It's a bunch of young men, and she's this central female character who was written for the musical. She's not in the movie. And they just wrote her so wonderfully. She's got confidence for days. She's strong. She's not shy or afraid to stand up for what she wants, to fight back, push back. She sort of has this really fun adversarial relationship with Jack, the lead character. And I just love that so much. I love that she didn't have to be sweet or, submissive, or she just she stands up for what she believes in, and she ends up telling this important story and writing a story in a time when, women weren't writing stories in newspapers. So it felt it was such an honor to play her every night and meet little girls at the stage door after who were looking up to her. And it just felt important.
And there was just a little bit of dancing in that show, right?
Oh. Yes.
What was your favorite choreography part that you got to do?
Oh my gosh, King of New York, because I have danced growing up, but if you had told me that I would be like center stage surrounded by men tap dancing on Broadway, I never ever would have believed you. I got to tap and kick my leg and dance surrounded by these incredible young male dancers. It was it was insane.
And that show, one of my favorites, I know it has a very strong fan base. I think they're called fansies. Mm-hmm. Did you experience kind of that love that people had for that show?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Felt like a rock star. I'll probably never feel like that again, but it was amazing. And we had people come every night again and again and again, sit in the front row. They were there at the stage door every night, reaching out to us on social media, sending us wonderful gifts. And I felt like truly I don't deserve all this, but they were so, so kind and sweet.
And what was it about, you said that when you saw that show, you really wanted to be in it. What was it about that show that really hooked you?
Well, I've always loved the movie. So there definitely was a part of me that was geeking out about the idea of being in the Broadway musical. I loved the music. I loved the story. It's such an empowering story, and it's a relevant story, and one that, hopefully empowers young people who see it today. And the character of Katherine, I just loved her so much.
Awesome.
Very fun. Well, we have a question along those lines. You talked about being part of the Disney family.
Yeah.
So Stephanie wants to know, if you could cast yourself in any Disney musical, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I was asked this question at Epcot and I don't remember what I said, but what's coming to mind now is, oh God, every one of them. Like, I want to be Ariel, I'd like to be Belle, but I think if they made a new one from one that hasn't been made yet, it would be Tangled. I would want to be in Tangled.
Oh, fun. Definitely.
Sure. So another fun show that you were a part of was Wicked. Can you talk to us about what role you played and what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, I played the role of Nessarose on the national tour. I did that right after I did Newsies. Yeah, that was crazy. I did that in 2014 or 15, I think I joined the tour. My first audition for Nessa in Wicked was in 2008. So I had been auditioning for that role in that show for many years. And I had gotten so close to it so many times. It was so funny. I had kind of accepted that maybe it wouldn't happen. And then it came along and it was like, oh my gosh, I get to do it. And I just always loved that role. I loved her. I love her arc, it's so fun to play, and I always wanted to do it. And I always wanted to be in Wicked. It came out when I was in high school and I was obsessed. So that was that was like another dream come true.
And what do you think, that show is so long running, a really classic? What do you think it is about that show that really speaks to people? Why is it so popular and powerful?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's a spectacle. The music is incredible, but it's the story, and the story of two women and, their friendship and relationship over time. I think it's pretty magical. I think the show it's pretty magical. You watch it and I've seen Wicked now probably 20 times and I still cry at the same spots. I still sing along with the same spots, and you fall in love with the two women and you go on the journey with them. It's amazing. And like I said, my fiance is currently in it. So we have a lot of Wicked in our lives, and I'm not.
So you've had the opportunity to perform on Broadway, to play these really incredible roles on tour. Talk to us about the pros and cons, the things you really love about touring versus Broadway. What do you really love about Broadway? What are those experiences? How do they compare and contrast?
Yeah, they're so different. So different. Tour, it can be really, really tough, but it's also this incredible, unique experience that's unlike anything else. It's tough for the obvious reasons. You're away from your home and your family, loved ones, your things. You're kind of on the road for, a lot of times people are on the road for years and years, and the turnaround between cities is really quick. So there's not a lot of times to go back and visit loved ones. So it definitely puts a strain on relationships. Larkin, my fiance, and I were long distance for about 3 years. We just kept getting tours back to back. So we kind of had to really figure that out. So it's tough. You have to basically live out of a mini fridge if you're lucky. And I did a lot of traveling a hot plate. I just cooked a lot of meals in hotel rooms on hotel beds. But it's so special, and you become such a unit with the company, crew, and cast. You're kind of all each other has, and the show is kind of what your whole life is about. Mm-hmm. So I think, it creates this amazing community, and everybody really shows up and pours their heart into the show every night because, that's your whole life. You're not. So, and it's really, so Broadway is amazing for so many reasons. But the way it differs from tour in that sense is that on Broadway, you're home surrounded by your family, you know, which is amazing, but also you have to do your whole life and then go and do the show at night. Whereas on tour, it's like your whole day can be about the show. When you're in New York, a lot of times you'll have like 5 auditions, and then you have to run home and eat something and take the dog out and then go back and do your Broadway show at night. It's like, so it's, which is amazing. It's part of the New York hustle and the you know, the whole Broadway experience. So you're performing in New York City on Broadway, and you get to live at home with your family, but it's exhausting.
So another tour that you had the opportunity to be in was the tour of Bright Star, which is one of my favorite shows. I think not a lot of people know a lot about that show. So I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about that show. What is it about? What was your role? What do you love about that show?
Oh my gosh. So I never got to see that show on Broadway, as so many people didn't. It did not have a long enough life. And gosh, so I auditioned for the national tour. They were replacing a bunch of the leads. And so I went in for the role of Margo. And as soon as I read the script and listened to the music, I fell in love with her, the character of Margo, but the show too. And I again had that sense of like, I must get to do this. So I ended up getting it, and I joined the tour and saw the show for the first time with Carmen Cusack and the wonderful touring cast. And I was a wreck. I mean, it's a hard show to explain, to like summarize the plot. But essentially, you know, at its core, it's about family. It's about home. And the score is Edie Brickell and Steve Martin, and it's folk music, and there's a folk band on stage with us. The way the set and the movement is done in the show is breathtaking. It kind of breathes and moves all as one. And anyway, it was, I only got to do it for a little bit because the tour closed. I think I got like 8 weeks of it, but we all said we would do it for years. I mean, it was just like, it was such a special show with a special story.
Awesome. So I'd love to rewind even further before Mamma Mia and learn a little bit about where you're from, which is the same place as me, and what the experience was like growing up. And did you always see yourself kind of having this path?
Oh man, yes. So we're both from Vermont. I'm from a small town in Vermont, Morrisville. I always kind of think back and try to figure out where it started for me. But for me, it does go back as far as I can remember. I think I always loved, like I said, Disney movies and music as a kid and dancing. And I did a really small summer theater camp when I was like 8 in Hyde Park, Vermont. And we had to like write our own shows and make our own sets and props. And I think that's the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I was like 8. And so from then on out, Vermont, I'm from a small town, and you really had to seek out the opportunities to do theater. My parents did a lot of hour commutes back and forth to Burlington, which had the great community theater, lyric theater, which I did a lot of shows at, and voice lessons and dance lessons. I mean, they drove so much time in the car driving, to and from, but it allowed me to partake in all the opportunities I could. And I was part of the drama club, and I went away to theater camp in the summers. And there's a really beautiful theater community in Vermont, I'm still close with all the people that I knew back then. And we all kind of found each other, because I would say I didn't go to high school with a lot of people who were interested in what I was interested in. So we kind of all found each other, all the theater people in Vermont, and made our own community. So
Well, we have a question here from someone who wants to know, do you think you'll ever come back to Vermont to do a performance? Leslie wants to know.
Oh my gosh, would love to. Also, Vermont happens to be, for anyone who hasn't been, one of the most beautiful places ever. So the thought of getting to do what I love there would be a really special thing. So yeah, definitely.
And then after, so can you talk a little bit about your college experience? Where did you go to school, and what were the most kind of memorable parts of that experience?
So growing up in Vermont, I knew I wanted to go to New York City, and I basically wanted to go as soon as possible. I just was antsy to get there. So I knew I wanted to go to NYU really badly, and it was one of the first schools I toured, maybe the first, and I was like, yep, this is where I want to go here. So I applied early decision and auditioned for their musical theater program at the time. It was Cap 21. And I got in early decision. So that was like, I was like, I'm going. So I went to NYU. So I started living in the city when I was 18, and which was nuts coming from Vermont, but also such a great experience. You know, a lot of people who do musical theater move to the city after college and have to go through that, you know, transitional phase then. And it was kind of cool to do it at 18 while I had, you know, I was living in a dorm and I had a big community. So by the time I graduated, I was really comfortable and set up in the city. And I loved it. I loved going to school in the city. I had a lot of great teachers and mentors, and the program spends your senior year kind of integrating you into the industry. So I was really thankful for that. Yeah, and I've been living in New York City ever since, except not at this moment.
Oh.
Yeah. And Tammy and I work with a lot of students who want to do what you do. Yeah. So here we probably have a lot of them watching now. So what advice would you give to students who want to go into this profession?
Yeah, a few things. I think it's important to always study, always take class, always be working on your craft. I still take class all the time. I take singing class, dance lessons, acting class. I study improv, anything you can do to kind of, work on your skills and grow and explore and be creative is really important. And then I also would say, gosh, in this industry is also really hard. And we hear no all the time. We get rejected all the time. And it can kind of make you feel like you just need to be whatever anyone wants. Like when you're going for an audition, it's easy to get in the mindset of like, okay, what do they want? I just need to be this today. Or I hear they're looking for this. And I think what I've learned is that they don't ever really know until it walks in the room. Mm-hmm. And the one thing you can offer that no one else can offer, because there are a lot of talented people out there in this industry, is you. So the sooner you can really figure out who you are and find out how you can bring yourself to every audition, every role, that's the one thing no one else can do. And if you walk into an audition room, infusing the material with you, it's going to make it come to life in a way that will make them say like, oh, that's what we want. Mm-hmm. And if it's not what they want, then it wasn't meant to be. But I think just finding out who you are and how you can bring yourself to everything you do is really important. And it's hard, but it's important.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's crazy that the time has flown by. We're kind of nearing the end of our conversation. I hope that you get a chance to go. You have a lot of fans here saying hello and that they've loved watching you perform. But we really want to thank you for taking the time to share your stories with us, share your thoughts, your advice with us. We've really enjoyed having you as a guest, and we just really appreciate you joining us. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And it's great to see you again, Tim.
You too.
Yay. Thank you so much. All right.
Oh, that was fun.
It was great. She had a lot of fans over here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. That's awesome. So that brings to an end our weekly Broadway chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Broward Center Broadway Chat is just one of many fun and engaging online offerings we have right now. Be sure to check out our website, browardcenter.org, and find out about all of our engagements at home. We have sing-alongs, we have classes. We're also gearing up for our summer programming. We have some cool stuff on tap for the summer. We have an after-work players class that will be virtual, as well as Tim and I are going to be leading a brand new Broadway virtual intensive. So we've got 2 of those lined up. So make sure that you follow along and keep up with what's going on. And you don't even have to live in Florida to do any of our virtual stuff. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you at one of our next events online.
Yes. Thank you again to Liana for joining us. Thank all of you for watching, for your comments. And we also want to give a very special thank you to Bank of America for their support of Broadway at the Broward Center all season long. So thank you to everybody. We hope that you have a great night.
Great. Bye.
Bye.